70% of employees in the American workforce self-identify as disengaged. Now, I don't know about you, this number bothers me a lot. As someone whose job it is to help people move forward through change and connect to one another, 70% of people feel like their work has no meaning. And that's Gardner. Gallup says it's closer to 90%.
What?
Right,
Yeah.
90% of people, which
Terrifying.
is really terrifying because it probably means that some of you in this room today would identify on some level as being disengaged. And when we talk about disengagement, there is a spectrum, and at the far end of it, actively disengaged means I come to work with the sole purpose of making not just myself miserable, but you miserable. The future is here. The whole millennials coming into the workforce and they're going to take over, that time is over. That time is now. Welcome, millennial. So they're here, and what they want out of work is to be able to do what they want, when they want, where they want, and they want to be inspired. Employees in the workforce, and as a reminder, you are an employee in the workforce, so this applies to us as well as human beings and people that work. They don't just want to come to work and get a check, and punch a clock, and be told what to do. The days of hierarchical leadership that are command and control, where the person above you gives you your day's activities and that's what you go do, are gone. People come to work and they are looking for meaning and purpose and connection. Here's the thing, as leaders within your organization, you are in a position where you can create that space for them to make those connections. And that works for you too, for you and for them. Here's the thing, good engagement is good business sense. In organizations where employees identify as being engaged in their work and engaged in their workplaces, those organizations outperform their peers across productivity, profitability, and they see lower turnover and lower absenteeism. Today we are making a bold assertion, and that bold assertion is that there is a way for you to create this space. And the way that we do that is getting back to something that is elemental to who we are as a human being, and that is getting back to play.
So how do we re-engage? 70 to 90% disengaged. Those numbers are terrifying. 70 to 90% of you are not listening to me right now. Soylent Green is people. So how do we check back in, right? And if you're saying that's play, I already have 70% to 90% of people who are on Instagram, not looking, not paying attention to work, and you want me to ask them to play more. Well, kind of. What we're challenging is the typical traditional conventions of work and play. So when we think of work and play, we think of them as opposites, right? If you are working, your heads are down, you're serious, you're productive. If you're playing, it's frivolous and meaningless and fun, but still meaningless. Well, these are still bifurcated things. We bifurcate our life. We are working and we're serious and we're going hard and we're working all these hours a week because we're productive. And then we more than make up for it on the weekends, right? That is productivity. That's what we do, right? Well, that's not always the healthiest of balances, right? We are saying that we infuse more play into how we work, that play isn't a distraction from work. Play is actually an accelerator to work. Play is a fundamental way of how we as human beings understand the world, think creatively about the world, become curious. Stuart Brown, who's a neuroscientist and is one of the foremost thinkers of play, came up with these definitions, right? And these may resonate with you if you remember playing, right? But anyone who's been a kid or has seen a kid on a playground knows that when you go down that slide and fall on the ground, you don't say, man, I really experienced a diminished consciousness of self out there. I have a desire to keep going, right? No, that's ridiculous. We just know this in our beings. We know play, we understand play. Like anything that is difficult to articulate and industrialize and operationalize, it's also one of the most simple things to understand. But I had to go to neuroscience to justify why I was playing and why play was good for me. So one of the things I'm going to try to do is give you that same permission, that science tells you that play is good, so we'll believe it. So a little bit about what's going on in our brains when we play. So physically, our brains are creating new neural pathways as we play. We evolved to play so we could understand new things about our environment. And when we think about play, we stop at stage 3, right? So there's anticipation, surprise, pleasure. We think play stops with pleasure, fun. But that's actually just the beginning. What's actually happening in our brains as we're creating these new neural pathways is we get a difference in perspective. It's why when Albert Einstein discussed the theory of relativity, he said, I thought of that while riding my bicycle. Because our brains actually don't know the difference between work life, play life, work brain, play brain. Rational brain is still working in the background while you're riding your bicycle. Then we develop new skills, strengths, right? Which is why, yes, I was getting better at thinking on my feet on stage, but I was also getting better at thinking on my feet in difficult or challenging situations at work. And then finally, poise. This is the best benefit, right? Is that as we continue to play, we get this sense of balance. So not only is this how we experience play on the inside, but we get all these great external benefits of play, right? So increased empathy. You're more flexible in your way of thinking, right? You form social bonds. And that's not just with those who you're playing with in an HR-approved way. That is, you're a nicer person to be around when you play more. And you get this healthy escape, right? You're not looking to unhealthy escapes. You have play, sense of joy. It's great. Now, what happens when we stop playing? Well, all these great benefits go in the reverse. So interpersonal conflicts go up. Increased predilection for addiction when you stop playing. Your brain's going to continue to look for that escape somewhere, not always in the healthiest of ways. Sometimes that looks like workaholism. We've always done it this way. You're more rigid in your way of thinking. Curiosity goes down. Disengaged. So that's why I love this quotation. The opposite of play is not work, it's depression. Our brain doesn't know the difference. This is the fun part. So we believe that play is really individualized, right? It's why the trust falls and the ropes courses don't always work for everybody. I don't think we do those anymore, but some people find this really exciting and cool, and some people find those terrifying and they shut down. Well, this is because our play types aren't all the same. So we took research on curiosity. That's what motivates you, what makes you excited. And research on play. That's how you show up, where you find joy, when you're playing at your best. And we fuse these two together. That's your play persona. That's when you are at your best, thinking your best, having the most fun. It's these two things combined. So what does this look like when we bring this into the workplace? Well, one example is Google has a 20% policy. That means 1 day a week, Google employees can pursue passion projects, tangentially related to work. Just play. Take 1 day to play. Some of the outputs of these projects, Gmail, Google News, AdSense, things we use every day, are the result of a company policy on play.
So what we are going to do, though, together is that we're going to explore the concept of yes and. So yes and is a fundamental part of improv and of comedy and of working together and playing together. We are going to have a play date all together for the next 20 minutes working on yes and, the idea that anything is possible. And by committing to saying yes together, we open up possibilities that we never thought were there in the mix. So how are we going to do this? We're going to play 3 games. One is going to be focused on the power of yes, harnessing yes. You're going to use your voices, you're going to use your bodies, but not in a weird way, don't worry. Where you're going to be able to work in a circle together to really harness the power of yes. Then the second one is going to be a build exercise. Yes, and then together we're going to build and make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until we don't even know where we're going to land. Then the third one, we're going to literally do some building.
Yes, Joyful Wolf! Yes, Joyful Wolf! Yes!
Yes! Razor Squad!
Yes, Joyful Squirrel!
Yes, they can fly like airplanes and they wear cute little hats.
Okay, yes, and flying monkeys get a lot of frequent flyer miles.
They get handful of hats and they get frequent flyer miles.
Right? And they use their freaking flyer miles to.
Yes, they can rent cars and there's zero emissions.
Yes, and they're driving Teslas?
So we're going to do a different activity for class. We're going to work on building something that shows what we need for our persona to get play reactivated for us. So what do we need? So as a social lion, I need something different than a joyful people. And we're going to represent that using some cool stuff. And talk. Brand new concepts and places. What really gets you? Where do we go from here? We've spent our day together playing and connecting and exploring the power of yes and. How do you start to translate this back into your office? All right, starting from the top, idea number 1, and I'll call out a few of these that really resonate with me. Practice playing at work. And what does this mean? It means finding a comrade, a friend, a play friend. Set up your own play dates with your play friend to have time specifically to imagine, to play and explore together. Let's look at item number 3, permission slip. There's a lot of power behind giving yourself permission to play more often. And lastly, of course, number 4, it's impossible to get away from yes and. Yes and can be an incredibly powerful tool, not just to interject play, but also to help you move past blocks and issues you're having getting to new solutions. So what's next? Okay, the lessons we want you to leave with. This is the final chapter in our story. 1, strong engagement is good business. The investment in engaging yourself and others will lead to stronger business outcomes. It is proven, and we know it's something that we can trust. Connect yourself and others to their meaning and purpose. We've talked a lot today about how connection to your personal purpose is what opens the doors to achieving incredible new things. As a leader, you're in a position to help others make that same connection. And lastly, if sitting through here, one of the things that was really sticking with you is how am I going to go back to where I work in my culture, in my environment, and talk about play? Play or innovation or imagination, creating together, reframing, discovering, exploration, these are all ways to play. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been so much fun playing with you. Thank you for being brave and courageous and showing up and being so willing to play with us.